You know the moment. It's not necessarily loud, but the air around you has thickened, saturated with the sudden, undeniable need for a boundary, for clarity, for someone, or maybe just the universe, to finally understand the weight of something you have carried silently for too long. The anger is clean, initially. It is the righteous heat that fuels the spine, the necessary fire that says, "No, this is unfair, and I deserve better." You feel the urgency of articulation, the need to hold the line firmly, to use the clear, steady voice you practice in your mind, the voice that demands respect and competence. The words are ready, sharp, and precise, waiting to be deployed, but then something else happens. It begins as a tiny, almost imperceptible tremor, a strange, constricting pressure at the base of your throat, a sudden, overwhelming heat that has nothing to do with the anger in your chest. It's a rush, a flooding sensation that seems to bypass the logical centers of your brain entirely. You try to push the words out, to maintain the steady gaze, to embody the firmness the situation requires, but the voice catches. It fractures, becoming thin and reedy, completely unrecognizable. And then, the betrayal. Without permission, without warning, the moisture pools. The sting arrives just behind the eyes, immediate and humiliating, and before you can even blink it away, the heat breaks, spilling over the lower lid, tracing a hot path down your cheek. The tears arrive, unbidden, unwarranted, and entirely contrary to the powerful, protective anger you were trying desperately to express. The anger is still there, roaring internally, but externally, the message has been scrambled beyond recognition. All that remains is the visible, undeniable signal of distress. In that instant, the argument, the boundary, the clarity, all of it dissolves into a singular, agonizing self-consciousness. The other person stops listening to the words, stops processing the argument, and sees only the tears. And in that moment of profound, confusing physiological incoherence, we ask the central existential question that haunts the complex mind. Why does my body betray my competence? Why, when I am finally, legitimately angry, when I have every right to be firm and unwavering, do I suddenly look and sound like I am collapsing? Why do I weep when I am fighting? What does this deeply confusing, utterly inconvenient physiological response say about the fundamental stability of my inner world? It is the great, silent paradox of the highly sensitive, highly empathetic individual. We are capable of immense clarity, immense strength, and immense endurance. Yet in the moments that require the simplest, most direct expression of self-advocacy, our system seems to short-circuit, deploying the one signal that invalidates every word we are trying to say. This physical reaction, this flood of unmanageable emotion that manifests as vulnerability, becomes the crucible for our deepest self-accusations. We retreat from the conflict, usually in shame, and the internal monologue begins the relentless, corrosive work of misinterpretation. We tell ourselves that this means we are weak. If we were truly strong, the narrative goes, our anger would be clean, surgical, and cold. It would not be muddy and pathetic. We accuse ourselves of being unstable, of being fundamentally incapable of handling adult conflict, of possessing an emotional thermostat that is permanently broken, spiking wildly out of control at the slightest provocation. We believe, deep down, that we are too much, that the sheer volume of our internal experience is simply not fit for the measured reality of the world. Perhaps the most painful self-accusation is the belief that we are somehow weaponizing vulnerability, that the tears are a manipulative tool deployed subconsciously to shift the burden or end the argument prematurely. Even though we hate the tears, even though we would trade almost anything for the ability to deliver that anger with a dry eye and a steady voice, the fear persists. Am I using this? Am I unconsciously trying to play the victim? This is the heavy load carried by the emotionally complex, the constant, exhausting battle against the misinterpretation of our own authentic internal signals. We judge ourselves by the visible outcome, the tears, and interpret them as a failure of character, a profound lack of maturity, or, worst of all, proof that our anger wasn't valid in the first place. Because if it were truly valid, why would we be crying? The tears, we conclude, are proof that we lost the argument before we even finished speaking. This is where we must perform the necessary conceptual turn, the subtle but profound shift in perspective that allows us to step out of the judgmental loop. We have to stop viewing the tears as a commentary on the content of the anger, the injustice, the boundary violation, the legitimate hurt, and start viewing them as a commentary on the state of the internal system. The tears are not a judgment. They are simply a pressure release. They are not proof that you are weak. They are proof that you are currently, perhaps chronically, overloaded. Imagine your nervous system as a magnificent, high-fidelity electrical grid designed to handle immense amounts of nuanced sensory and emotional data, which is precisely what a sensitive, introspective person possesses. You feel things deeply. You perceive subtleties others miss. You process implications and future risks instinctively. This is your baseline, your operating environment. Now, imagine this complex grid has been running at 80% capacity for years due, perhaps, to the accumulated stress of masking your sensitivity, managing relational complexity, or simply navigating a world that demands a pace and rigidity that drains you. This 80% capacity is your invisible load, the silent hum of chronic, low-grade overwhelm. When anger finally arrives, that sharp, necessary signal that a boundary has been crossed and needs immediate enforcement, it requires mobilizing 100% of your system's remaining resources. Anger is an intense, active state. It demands metabolic energy, hormonal preparation for confrontation, and cognitive focus to articulate the boundary clearly. This is the fight response, the sympathetic nervous system surging forward. But if you were already at 80% capacity, trying to push through the remaining 20% to assert yourself means you are momentarily running at 120%. Your system is now in the red zone. The anger is the necessary alarm bell, but the tears are the circuit breaker. They are the body's desperate, non-negotiable attempt to protect itself from catastrophic internal burnout. The simple conceptual turn, then, is this. The tears are not a sign that you failed to be angry. They are a sign that you successfully allowed the anger to surface, but that the cost of that assertion, layered upon the existing weight of your emotional life, was too high for your biology to sustain without immediate discharge. The tears are a biological self-soothing mechanism that kicks in when the fight response becomes too physiologically overwhelming. Your body recognizes the immense energy deployed for the boundary setting and simultaneously registers the underlying pain, historical vulnerability, and sheer exhaustion involved in having to fight for your basic dignity in the first place. For those of us who carry this particular kind of complexity, anger is rarely just anger. It is anger plus the grief of having to feel angry. It is anger plus the sadness of realizing this boundary must be asserted yet again. It is anger, plus the fear of the potential relational cost of speaking the truth. It is the full, compressed weight of the emotional context that rushes forward in that moment of assertion. Most people, when they feel angry, experience a relatively pure, focused burst of motivational energy aimed at the problem. For the sensitive system, that burst is contaminated or perhaps enriched by layers of secondary emotion. We must understand that the tears are often not an expression of the current immediate hurt, but rather the visible manifestation of a deep, historical backlog of unexpressed feeling that found a momentary, high-pressure escape route. Think of it like a dam built up over years, holding back the quiet weight of countless small hurts, ignored needs, and suppressed truths. The anger, the boundary assertion, acts like a small but forceful crack in that dam. It is the first time the system has permitted itself to be truly forceful, and in that powerful moment of permission, the entire accumulated reservoir of stored stress rushes through the breach, manifesting as uncontrollable tears. We can name this invisible load that precipitates the crying, this complex physiological reaction to necessary assertion, the high arousal discharge of accumulated empathic fatigue. It is the moment where the body, having spent years prioritizing the emotional comfort and stability of others, having internalized the belief that its own needs must be minimized or softened, finally attempts to prioritize self-protection. And the sheer shock to the system of finally prioritizing self, combined with the extreme physiological arousal of the fight response, forces the body into an immediate and visible release. The tears are an involuntary signal that your system has reached its saturation point, not just because of the current argument, but because of everything leading up to it. This is the psychological clarity we need. The tears are a measure of your capacity, not your conviction. They measure the volume of past stress, not the validity of your present position. The anger is the conviction. The tears are the overflow. They are the body saying, "I hear the signal, but I cannot sustain this level of internal mobilization without immediate pressure release." And this realization offers a profound cognitive relief. When you cry while angry, you are not losing control. You are experiencing a desperate, automatic attempt by your body to regain equilibrium in the face of overwhelming internal mobilization. You are not weak, you are simply highly sensitized, and your body is finally speaking the truth about the invisible load you have been carrying in silence. And this is where we must name that invisible load, because recognizing the mechanism is only half the journey. The other half is recognizing the source of the pressure. The invisible load is the accumulated cost of internalizing the world's volume while maintaining a quiet interior. It is the cost of constant anticipatory navigation, checking corners before you turn them, sensing the subtle shifts in emotional weather in a room, always adjusting your sails to prevent the slightest ripple of conflict. For the highly sensitized system, this preemptive emotional labor is exhausting, but often unconscious. When anger finally erupts, it is rarely just about the immediate transgression. It is the final heavy drop that makes the glass of all that accumulated, swallowed tension finally overflow. The tears, then, are not just the physiological reset button working overtime. They are the physical manifestation of the backlog of all the times you needed to cry, needed to scream, needed to simply stop and rest. But instead, you silently buffered the reality for everyone else. This is the weight of living with a system calibrated for high resolution in a low-resolution world, where subtle hurts are dismissed and profound reactions are often deemed dramatic or unstable. You were taught implicitly or explicitly that your anger was dangerous, too messy, or simply unacceptable, especially if you were expected to maintain a nurturing or composed presence. So, you learned to compress it, to package the righteous indignation into a neat, silent box, only for the biological self to stage a revolt when that box finally ruptured. The tears are the body's way of saying, "I cannot hold this shape anymore." They are the evidence that your system has reached peak capacity for performance and is now reverting to the core function: survival and discharge. There is a profound, quiet truth in this physical reaction that we must finally acknowledge, separating the raw biology from the cultural judgment. If we could distill this entire complex, shame-ridden experience down to a single, restorative understanding, it would be this: the tears of anger are the sound of your deepest boundary finally being enforced, even if only by your own body. They are proof that something essential inside you was violated, and though your conscious mind might still be scrambling for the socially acceptable response, the cool, rational articulation of the grievance, your subconscious, autonomic nervous system has already recognized the danger and initiated the necessary emergency protocol. The tears tell the truth before your voice can find the words, before your logic can construct the perfect argument. They are the primal scream translated into fluid, a definitive declaration that the internal cost of maintaining the status quo has become too high. This realization, when truly absorbed, offers more than just intellectual understanding. It offers a deep, pervasive sense of cognitive relief. The relief comes from the permission to stop fighting the tears. For years, perhaps decades, you have added a layer of secondary suffering, the shame of crying, on top of the primary pain of being angry or violated. You judged yourself for being weak, for being hysterical, for failing to hold the line of composure. But what if you could simply look at those tears not as a failure, but as an undeniable, if messy, victory of self-preservation? The relief is the moment you cease the internal war against your own biology. When the tears come, you don't have to push them back or apologize for them. You can simply acknowledge them as the necessary discharge of intense internal pressure. You can recognize that in that moment of seeming loss of control, you are actually witnessing your body doing its highly specialized, protective job. You are not losing the argument. You are simply processing the volume. You are not weak. You are simply allowing your deep, sensitized self to communicate. This shift in perspective is the quiet act of reclaiming your own emotional landscape. It allows you to step back from the frantic self-criticism and instead adopt a stance of gentle curiosity and profound self-compassion. The tears are simply data points, signals that the internal pressure gauge reached red. Your work is not to silence the alarm, but to understand why the pressure built up so high in the first place. Your work is to look at the invisible load you carry and ask, with sincere kindness, what can I set down? If you have lived this way, carrying the weight of others' expectations and your own high emotional standards, then this understanding is not a path to fixing yourself, but a path to finally accepting yourself. It means recognizing that your heightened sensitivity, the very trait that makes you feel so overwhelmed, is also the trait that allows you to feel the world with such depth, to connect with such sincerity, and to care with such fierce loyalty. This is not a flaw to be corrected. It is the complex wiring of a deeply feeling human being. The next time that wave hits, the anger rising, the throat tightening, the heat behind the eyes threatening to spill over, do not reach for the shame. Do not reach for the judgment. Instead, grant yourself the space to experience the truth of the moment. Allow the tears to be what they are, the body's honest accounting of an overwhelming situation. They are not a sign that you failed to contain your emotions. They are the sign that you finally, automatically, refuse to contain them any longer. The only action required is a quiet, internal pivot towards acceptance. Give yourself the immense, restorative gift of gentle observation. Breathe through the physiological storm and whisper this truth to the overwhelmed part of yourself. I see you. I know this is intense. You are allowed to be this full. Do not ask yourself to be calmer, stronger, or different. Ask only that you be honest with the intensity of your own experience. Because the deepest relief comes not from controlling the storm, but from finally acknowledging the profound, necessary truth carried on the tide of your own tears. Let that understanding settle slowly, like dust finally resting after a long journey.